Hi everyone and welcome to Speakeasy Studio. I've been meaning to make this video for a very long time because this is one of the most commonly asked questions from learners, from fellow teachers, educators, and also one of the most commonly asked questions on podcasts is how to get better at your level and how do you rate yourself, because I think this is what we most challenge with. We as humans are unable to rate ourselves because either we are way too critical or we're too lenient and too graceful with ourselves. So how do you do that? So there are international levels made also for the same. One of the levels is called the CEFR level, the Common European Reference or Framework for Languages. This level is essentially divided between A1, A2, B1, B2 and C1, C2. So A1, A2 is essentially for you to just be at your basic level. And when you come to B1, B2, it becomes intermediate and upper intermediate. C1 is advanced and C2 is proficient or mastery. So a lot of times people don't know where they sit. But today there are so many of these programs and AI modules that you can take that can tell you your CEFR levels. Okay, there are these online tests where you do a speaking test and it tells you and it kind of rates you. So this sometimes is good, Why do we do examinations? The whole idea is to see our performance as it is today and to compare it to what it was earlier. And sometimes you need that kind of motivation to work towards a further goal. So today let's take a very simple statement that we have all been using since we were young kids. Simple saying that I have a doubt. Okay, but you'll also notice that very commonly we Indians generally used to use this, or some of them maybe still use the sentence which is I'm having a doubt, right? This happens because of translation from your language one, that is your L1, which could be a native tongue, it could be the place where you live, the local language that is predominant in your brain right now. So instead of doing that, I want people to know that the sentence is I have a doubt, right? But how do we use this in different formats or in different levels? So I'll start from a B1 level. So at a B1 level, I always tell people that don't use the word doubt, because in a conversation, you having a doubt meaning you didn't understand that properly. So instead of that, reframe the sentence and say, I have a question. The minute you say, I have a question, you're letting them know that you heard them, but you still have further questions towards it or you need more further clarifications. The minute when you say a doubt, it seems uncertain. So this is one way to show that you're at an intermediate level. Now to make it slightly more upper intermediate, you could use something like, I'm not entirely sure about this. Can I get some more clarity? Or I'm uncertain about what you said right now. Can we discuss it further? This allows you to put the ball back into their court. So that means the onus now of explaining themselves is on the person who gave you the statement or framed this statement towards you. So this allows you that time and to take a little bit more focus in a conversation towards you. Remember, words are nothing but essentially put together, strung together for it to make cognizance enough that you two people or many people can continue a conversation. So these small little things are very important because they work on the psychological and social factor of language. The other option would be from here would be the C1 level, which is essentially your advanced level. Here you could say something like, I have reservations about this, let me think about it. Or I have some reservations and I would prefer a little bit more clarity on it. It lets the person who's speaking to you know that you've thought about it, you've mulled over the idea or the conversation, and now you're coming up with some valid reservations. So remember, it's also not the vocabulary, because we have not used any high vocabulary here, but to let them know that your brain is thinking in these directions. Now comes one of the other big challenges. A lot of people with great practice and putting themselves through listening, reading and speaking do reach the C1 level. But sometimes, more often than not, Indian speakers sometimes can have the difficulty of going from C1 to C2. Now that leap, though, is just from C1 to C2, but it is much longer or a much higher leap than one can think about it. And why? I'll explain it to you. To be a proficient user, you need not know just vocabulary, but you have to know the context of the conversation. You should be able to read the room. You should be able to gauge from people's expressions if they are interested or if this conversation is making sense. So if you had to use the same sentence like I have a doubt and use it in a more academic or like a debate kind of discussion, you could say that I'm not sure about the validity of your argument. I have some reservations about it, right? That opens the floor for further debate, which is something you would want to use in an academic setting or a debate setting. If you are using this with your friends in a casual setting, you could say, I'm on the fence with this one. I'm slightly skeptical, not entirely sure, right? So you use the idiom, you let them know that it's not a total no, but you're not entirely sure with what they just said. In a meeting or office setting, you could say on those lines, I'm uncertain of how this will play out, or I'm not entirely sure if this is the right path for us. This also lets the person who's speaking to you know that you've already given this a lot of thought while they were speaking, and it doesn't seem that this is the right direction for this conversation to take. So now you see the difference between the C1 advanced speaker and the C2 proficient speaker. The difference may not be too much. You may not even hear it right now. But trust me, in the room with people, in a meeting or inside a setting like that, that distinction makes all the difference. And that is what can take your game from C1 to C2. And I have one other thing to add. I say this to all the students and all learners who are eager to learn vocabulary and whose favorite question is, oh ma'am, what's your favorite vocabulary and how do we learn this? My only thing is I love to talk in analogies sometimes. Vocabulary or higher vocabulary is like a garnish on the dish, right? We have to prepare the dish. You have to put the ingredients together. You have to cook it. It has to all come together. And that is when we can sprinkle the garnish of some good vocabulary on top to amplify that dish. But remember, don't forget to cook the dish. So that's the reason why I keep telling people, try to focus on sentence structure, add a little gravitas to the way you speak. You know, take a little pauses, look here. There's a lot of body language that goes into conversation. Conversation is simply not only words coming out of your mouth, because it's not done in a vacuum. There's a lot of back and forth, there's a lot of smiling, there's a lot of leaning forward, leaning backward. All of this is what makes a great conversation. So keep your garnish ready, but kindly focus on making the dish first, and then the garnish will definitely take your dish to another level. Hope this video was helpful and keep watching for more. Thanks a lot.